welcome to your award-winning The Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel, and your other hosts this week are Maceo and Bobby. Welcome on, guys.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me back on. I'm always ready to talk some Xbox, Microsoft.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to talk some of this gaming news. Always fun as usual. Thanks for having me.
So let's jump right in. So these are all from early 2020, and these leaked emails from Xbox boss Phil Spencer revealed his thoughts on the PlayStation 5. Sony had just unveiled the PS5's hardware specifications, including an AMD Zen 2 CPU, custom GPU based on AMD's RDNA 2 architecture, 16 gigabytes of RAM, a custom SSD for 825 gigabytes. And these two hosts, Bobby and Maceo, are perfect for this. Heavy gamers, Maceo especially big on Xbox. And what do you guys think of Phil's impression on the PS5?
I think it was a little bit, maybe it was a little bit boisterous. Maybe he was trying to make the Xbox team feel better because it's not like Xbox had a significant advantage just going off the teraflop numbers. I think inch, which is practically nothing. So you don't really see much of that on paper. Even today, usually it's neck and neck with the Xbox either having a slightly higher resolution or the PlayStation having a lower resolution but a higher frame rate. And then a few games here and there, Xbox has a better version, but it's like marginal at best. You literally wouldn't be able to tell. So I think he was a little bit extra on it. The big thing that put the Xbox Series X on top of the PS5, which was a wash at the end once the updates came out further along the lines, was the storage. PS5 obviously only had 800 gigabytes versus the Xbox terabyte. And then on top of that, on Xbox, the OS takes up less space. So you just had almost double the amount of storage on the Series X. But then all of that gets wiped out because you could internally put an SSD into the PS5 to expand the storage. And then Microsoft has the fucking expensive ass external storage expansion that still is expensive to this day. Meanwhile, the internal storages that you can upgrade on your PS5 are like fucking pennies on the dollar at this point.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that halfway. You're right about the storage. That's the biggest difference for me. Like both systems are pretty much the same. Like you said, the main thing that I have experience with, I own both systems, is just like you pointed out with the Series X, the expansion slot is on the outside. It's external and it's pretty much proprietary. You have to use the one that they suggest, which I think it's Western Digital. Don't quote me on that. It might be a different company. And you have to.
They got more now.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Different ones, but it's the same price.
Expensive.
Basically.
Yeah, yep. They're very expensive. They are not cheap. Like for a terabyte, you got to pay like $250 or more. It is not cheap at all. And then for the PS5, I did this myself. I got an extra SSD that installs with the heatsink already installed on it. It took me like 5 minutes to pop open the case, pop up, unscrew the slot, and then put it in there and screw it back in, and pop the cover back on, and it boots up and it recognizes the extra terabyte. And that would have cost me about $80 to $90, but somebody upgraded theirs that I know, and he gave me his one that I was using. So I got it for free, luckily, but even if I were to invest in it, it would have been under $100. So the fact that the PS5 has that capability for cheaper option is cool. That's the one downside for the Series X that is awkward, is that expansion slot that you're forced into having to get that specific plug-in type. It's almost like a USB. You have to plug it in, and then it sticks out of the unit. Like, I mean, yeah, it's on the back, but it's still there. I mean, come on.
Yeah. And just as a reference, Bobby, that stick that you got for free that you said, it'd be like $80. You can get 3 terabytes of storage for $150.
Oh, yes. The prices have come down insane.
Yeah, and it's only going to get cheaper. It's not going to get more expensive. It's only going to get cheaper.
Correct. I agree. Because when the PS5 came out, we were dealing with all the the problems with chips and all that stuff. And technology was fairly new. You're talking almost 3 years ago. And yeah, that was a challenge. You want to upgrade. Like I ran out of space real quick on my PS5, so I was quickly trying to upgrade, and it was expensive.
Couldn't even do it. You couldn't even do it at first because you had to wait for them to update the system.
Correct.
So,
you had to update the OS in order to give you access even for that slot to recognize it. It took like 6 months to a year, I think. It wasn't even right away.
Yep.
For a little bit of context on this, too, none of these emails, from what I understand, or at least these leaks, they weren't meant to be read. Like, we shouldn't be talking about it, right? How much of what we're going to talk about was meant to be on public record?
Probably like public record, all of it. Redacted, redacted mostly, and not to be seen by us. But yeah, it's like your work emails. You don't want your customers to see your work emails.
Yeah, and the source of the leak, to be clear, was a lawyer uploading this for the FTC. So we weren't even supposed to see this. The problem was they either clicked the wrong button or they sent it to the wrong thing or whatever. And somebody got a hold of it, and that's how it got leaked.
Or the lawyer sabotaged theory. It. Yep.
They leaked it on purpose because Xbox wanted this leaked because it creates other talk besides the merger talk and all the other drama with their failed games that they have put on Game Pass. Because let's be honest, Xbox or Microsoft has had issues pumping out quality games for the past couple of years.
That's debatable.
This is a good distraction. I'm not targeting you as a Microsoft shareholder. I'm saying this as in fact because Maceo will agree. They keep pumping out dirty diapers after dirty diapers. And I'm not talking about Starfield.
What do you think, Mace?
It started with Halo Infinite. It's been downhill since.
Yeah, he's right. I mean, there's been games that have been good, like Forza Horizon 5.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Flight Simulator.
Good one.
Now Starfield. But then they've had duds like Halo Infinite, Redfall.
Redfall was a huge dud.
Yeah, so
that was massive.
It's been pretty rocky.
And then you just mentioned those titles. That's less than 5, right? We should be able to mention like tons of titles compared to Sony. Sony's had a bunch of decent first-party games, and Microsoft just keeps swinging and missing. And the complaint is they keep hoarding all these studios and buying all these different companies, and they haven't produced anything. That's the ongoing argument. That's why Redfall was supposed to start that cavalcade of, here we are, we've arrived, fail. Starfield comes out, here we are, we have arrived, yes, very popular, very famous, did a lot. But then, now the after effects of, well, this wasn't really what you advertised, but sure, it's good.
Well, I've got to ask, do you think that this was, are you on conspiracy theory side, Bobby, on that this was all intentional so that we would all talk about it?
Both. I think it was probably a stupid blunder, but at the same time, possibly planned to divert from the negative traction that Microsoft has currently accumulated. I don't know. Who knows?
All right, well, let's continue on these leaks that we're not supposed to be talking about now, that should have been redacted, as Maceo said. Spencer, in this same email, he expressed confidence in Microsoft's Xbox Series X, stating, quote, "We have a better product than Sony has, not just on hardware, but equally important on the software platform and services on top of the hardware," end quote. He acknowledged the need for discussion on pricing, investments, and other factors, but believed in their product. And this is, obviously, I agree with this. They do have a better product. I think their services are better. I think Sony only had the one exclusive this year. I was asking Maceo about it yesterday, and it's just Spider-Man, I believe, whereas Microsoft's Xbox has followed through on that software this year, especially. We're about to get Forza coming up here in the next couple of weeks, I want to say. So confidence in the product. Next week, awesome. So a lot of broadcasts will be playing it by this time next week. I don't think there's a lot to pull from this except, some corporate talk. He believes in the product. I wouldn't expect anything different. However, it's worth noting that since then, the gaming landscape has evolved. So since 2020, PS5 has seen significant sales success, while Xbox Series consoles have faced challenges with year-on-year comparison. They've admitted themselves that they're in third place, which actually helped them out in the FTC ruling for this Activision Blizzard acquisition, which I think is we're going to get that in the next couple of weeks. Right now, continuing these leaks, Microsoft appears to be gearing up for a mid-generation refresh of the Xbox Series X and S consoles set for release in August and October of next year. So leaked documents from the FTC provide insights into these upgrades. The enhanced Series X, which is codenamed Brooklyn, it takes on a digital-only form factor, and it resembles the current Series S. Impressive specifications including 12 teraflops of power, 4K resolution, 16 gigabytes of RAM, 2 terabytes of storage, and that's pretty huge for a digital-only console. And they aim to emphasize sustainability with the documents stating that 15% reduction in PSU supply and a new low power standby mode, which consumes only 20% of the current iteration's standby power. And the console is packaged to be designed 100% recyclable. And the Series S is also in line for a mid-generation refresh. This one's codenamed Elwood, 10 gigabytes of RAM. And Microsoft plans on announcing these both, Elwood and Brooklyn, simultaneously around the summer of 2024, possibly during a Summer Games Fest event. So this was the news that I was really excited for. You both know that I was right on pulling the trigger for this Xbox Series X this holiday season, Black Friday. This leak happens, and I was telling myself too, I'm like, this is going to end up being another Nintendo situation where I buy a 3DS and then they announce the 3DS XL. This is going to happen with the Series X. But, if it happens, it happens. Sure enough, they announce a leak. Good news for me. I get to wait another year, but it's going to be worth it. I mean, this does seem like it's not a hardware massive upgrade, but in terms of power, in terms of space, it'll do everything I need it to do, but better.
Yeah, this doesn't, to me, this doesn't move the needle. At the end of the day, within some of these leaks, we saw the sales percentages between Series X and Series S, and we found out that Series S is outselling the Series X 3-1. So to me, this upgrade doesn't really do much to help them move units, especially since the Series S is the one that's actually moving the units. And I don't know, some people might say, well, that's due to during the pandemic when they had the chip shortage, they could crank out Series S's without issue because it uses a smaller chip than the Series X, and they could just crank those out and make way more Series S versus making Series X. And that's the reason why it outsold. But at the end of the day, like most people that own one of these next generation or current generation Xboxes, they own Series S. So this doesn't move the needle to me. 2 terabytes of storage is great, but it's the exact same console, just smaller because it's going to be digital and a little bit more storage. In the grand scheme of things, like that's not going to help them get to where they need to be. And it for sure doesn't help them if Sony is following through with their rumors, which is coming out with a PS5 Pro that's going to be more powerful and have higher graphic capabilities than Series X.
So this information specifically is where I call bullshit and lean towards the conspiracy, because I think, my opinion, that although this sounds cool, and to lean on Maceo's point of, not really needed, this doesn't make sense, because this is essentially saying within a year we're going to abandon physical media completely. And I'm sorry, that's too early. Is it better? Not better is the wrong word. Is it right to think that the physical media abandonment will happen by the next console generation, which should be around, I think the industry's targeting 2028? That makes more sense, because if you abandon physical media now, next year, you're pretty much putting GameStop out of business. Like the nail in the coffin for GameStop will happen immediately. Which
the nail is
right?
already in there.
Right. That coffin's going to get buried. The nail's in there, but it's going to get buried. And then you're now going to mess with all mass market, because now all of your retail stores are not going to carry video games. Or if they do, it's going to be the codes to redeem online. I'm sorry. I don't think we're at that point yet, because for one, we maybe live in a better area that has infrastructure accommodated for internet, but you can go to all sorts of different places in the US, just the US alone. And the infrastructure is so poor, they can't get fiber, they can't get proper internet, their Wi-Fi is garbage. Like, that's a thing. And I know that because I travel a lot throughout the US, and That is a real thing. So it just doesn't make sense to me that we're going to go to specifically Microsoft, go to a completely diskless systems and not offer a way to have disks. We know it's on the decline. We know that digital sells better. That's all factually proven. But to stamp that out so quickly, so fast, like you're almost saying, I don't want money because I'm only want to cater to the people that buy online. What about all those people that can't do digital, that they need discs? What about all those?
They're screwed right now.
Yeah, right. And you're just making it worse. Like at least now, but at least now there's options, right? When you get to the quote unquote refresh, there won't be an option. Now, specifically for this, there's supposed to be some plug-in drive that you're supposed to buy separately.
Right, exactly.
Because we're going back to 2002 or 1997 when they put out the Xbox 360 version with the two different versions, one with an external drive. Come on, are we really going to do that? And also, when you're doing that, you're using Sony's hardware because that they own Blu-ray. So, are you going to now sell your products with a separate unit that is a Sony product? Come on.
Well, you're selling less of them now this way, because I bet you that as hard as it is to get internet around the world or in even just parts of the state or country, as Maceo was saying, the Series S vastly outsells the X, which is a digital-only console. So
that's the price point.
To their base consumers, they don't care. They'll take the Series S. I'll take the refresh. I don't need a disc system, but they're providing that option. As you were saying, give them that option. Well, they have the option. They can buy the disc drive, which, yes, some of that will go to Sony, but that's better than putting them in all the consoles, in which you're definitely giving a chunk to Sony for every system sold. I think that it's not a bad thing, especially with that surprising fact of Series S being, what was it, over 70% of sales.
Yeah, and you also got to think at the moment. I want to say I don't think there's a statistic, but I would say at least 70% of games that come on disc, you can't fucking play the disc version.
Oh,
it's
no,
not. It doesn't work.
It's only a port key. That's all it is.
It's either a port key, or if there's actual data on the disc, it's so broken that you still need the day one patch. So you still need internet. I mean, maybe you don't have to download 40 gigabytes of data. You only need just the 1 or 2 gigabyte patch. But shit, installing stuff on the disc for most people, taking 40 gigabytes off of a Blu-ray takes longer than downloading that shit. So right now, the whole purpose of physical is practically worthless for 80 to 90% of games, I would say. And most of the time when it does work as intended, where you can just take the disc, put it in, and play what's on the disc, it's for games that have collector's editions that come out way after you've already been able to buy the fucking game on the Xbox store or the PlayStation store. And they're just putting out a collector's version for collectors. And it's literally hey, you can play this. And at the end of the day, that's still not the real full game, because they'll make updates to that.
Yeah.
So
I'm not arguing with you. You're correct. This is all true.
Yeah.
I just don't think, my personal opinion, it's not time to switch to force all digital. And if this is true, then that means Sony's going to do the same damn thing. And they just,
they already
haven't had their quote unquote leak,
Isn't the PS5 Pro supposed to be digital only?
Yeah. PS5 is supposed to be digital only, and they're going to sell that same disc, Blu-ray disc, external, just like the rumor for Xbox. That's the rumors right now.
Yeah, but they do the same thing, and no one bitches. But the refresh happens, and everyone loses their minds.
The thing is, on top of this, so at Gamescom, which was 2 weeks before TGS, and this Tokyo Game Show, this leak, quote unquote, happened right after TGS. But at Gamescom, Phil Spencer was interviewed by, I think it was IGN, and I think it was Paris Davis or Ka. Yeah, I think it was Ka Adams. He had specifically asked him in an interview, hey, are we going to get a Xbox refresh? Typically, we get the mid-gen, slim model or pro model. Is that coming? And Phil's answer was, he didn't say no, but what he pretty much said to say no was, we're focused on, enhancing our services. We need to give games to the customers, blah, 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 all that, yada, yada, yada. But at the end, after he says all that stuff, no, we're not focused on making a new system. We don't have plans to make one. And then 2 weeks later, this leak happens. So it's like, sure, he could have told a white lie because he has to, but at the same time, like now that we get to see what these slides look like and what the info is on them, which were also printed from 2-3 years ago, I just have trouble believing it because it just seems so far. Also, it says 4K resolution. That's what the Xbox Series X is supposed to be 4K. So you're giving us another system that's supposed to be 4K that was 4K originally? Like, come on.
Yeah, because this is just the Series X but digital. With it's not like a upgraded version. So
I just don't believe it. And why would you add 1 more terabyte and take out the disk drive and it's the same price as a Series X? That also does not make sense. If you're taking out the disk drive and you're adding a terabyte, you should be adding like 4 more terabytes to that thing or 5 more terabytes.
That's the part I
all that
disagree
space on the disk drive. Like, what the heck? What's the
that would never happen.
It's so small. Like, it doesn't take up any space. If you're going to charge $500,
that shit ain't happening.
Well, that's the part I disagreed with on the leak, because it's that price point. I'm thinking if they release that PS5 Pro as it's rumored at $500, these refreshes can launch at $300 and $500. They just will not compete. They have to be cheaper.
Yeah, I mean, you already know I'm on the camp of Team Cheaper. I was saying before they put out the terabyte Series S, I said, oh, this year they need to drop the Series S to $250, and then it needs to regularly be on sale for $200, because $300 is not a good price point. And then 2 weeks later, they do the Game Fest, and oh yeah, Series S 1 terabyte version at $300.
and to be fair, I've seen those in the stores. Like, I see them regularly at Target, etc. The black ones, the new ones. So I'm glad that they're out there, because it's another option, for folks that need a smaller footprint and have no business buying discs. Like, that's perfect. And the machine technically doesn't need it because the big library that you're going to get in Game Pass. That's the reason why that exists, and it's perfect.
Well, as mentioned, the prices again for these refreshes, $300 and $500 respectively, scheduled for release at the end of 2024 August for Elwood, with Brooklyn following at the end of October 2024. So almost exactly a year from today. So in addition to console upgrades, Microsoft has a new Xbox controller in development codenamed Sabile. Notably, this controller features an accelerometer for gyro support, and it is slated for an announcement during the Q4 of the fiscal year 2024. It's expected to launch at the end of May 2024, priced at $70. I think it also, the gyroscope or gyro support, that's basically what the new DualSense has, isn't it? They kind of took that technology and they're applying it to this new controller.
Yeah, the DualSense and the Switch. The gyro is like the gyro controls, like kind of like you can use the like Wiimote as a steering wheel.
Okay,
that's
gotcha.
Gyro. And a lot of people been asking for that because they have it's in the Switch, it's in the PS5, it's in the Steam Deck, it's in everything except for the Xbox. And I know a lot of people are fans of the gyro aiming because you can use that in conjunction with the thumbsticks and get more precision out of them. But to me, in my opinion, I don't give a fuck about this controller. I'm just keep it real. I don't care. I don't want my controller to do anything, but I press buttons on it and it does what I want it on the screen. That's all I need my controller to do. I don't need it to have microphones. I don't need it to have speakers. I don't need it to rumble. I don't need it to feel like it's sand in the controller. I don't need all that stuff. But I know people like to be immersed. I like my hands to just feel plastic, and that's it. I don't need all the extra shit.
Same. Don't care. Move on. Ship it.
People were really excited for this controller, I saw, and it sounds like these will come with the Xbox refresh standard, but coming out early next year. This is something that people were like, yeah, this should have just launched earlier than May 2024, maybe this holiday season even. But definitely
the only thing I do like about this, the only thing I do like about this is that it might make the regular controller cost less.
Yeah,
because $60 for the controller is ridiculous. It doesn't, especially the new Series X controllers. Like, I know it has Bluetooth in it and all that shit, but like in the grand scheme of things, that controller isn't really that much different than the Xbox One controller. So why did it need that like $10 jump from a $50 controller to a $60 controller?
Yeah, the one benefit though, actually there's two benefits if you care. There also are controller whores out there, so that caters to that crowd, which is fine. Nothing against that. The two upgrades on this thing that are slightly attractive is the Wi-Fi Bluetooth that's included in it. It's a new frequency because it allows you to use it with your TV if you're doing Game Pass on your TV without a system.
Nice.
So that gives you the direct. It reduces latency is what it's supposed to do.
Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that. And Microsoft, we'll probably talk about it later, but Microsoft knows no one's doing that.
Oh, I know. It's because of our infrastructure. Infrastructure here is garbage. So, and then the second is the they're customizable. So they'll be added to. If you look at the slide, it has that acronym for Xbox Design Labs. I think it's XDBL or something like that. That is referring to Xbox Design Labs. So these are going to be customizable. So which again caters to the controller whores because they can make it any way, color that they want, which is really cool. And I'm not knocking that, by the way. Like I'm saying controller whores in a good way, not a bad way. Like that, it's good business for them. It's good customization features, and it's pretty neat. So if I had the money, I'd be buying controllers like that. I have a palette that I have saved for not only the original Xbox, but also the 360 to make a controller for the Series X. It's pretty cool. I just don't want to spend $115 on it,
Yeah, and the Xbox community especially, they're pretty big collectors when it comes to controllers. Every time I see someone's like, hey, rate my setup, and I see it on Facebook on these Xbox groups, they have like a fucking shelf of just controllers, different colored ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's people like that. I remember it was like that for the PS4. The PS3. Like people used to always get, oh man, the new green controller, a new purple controller. And it kind of died off with the PS4 and the Xbox One, but like it's back now. Like everybody on the Xbox side, they're always talking about controllers. I have friends that have like a Design Lab controller, more than one, because they bought one and then they're maybe like their girlfriend or their husband that games with them. I'm like, shit, I want a nice controller too. So then they gotta buy another one. See, that's why I just buy the black one. So my wife don't give me no flack. Oh, I need to get the green. Let me get the pink. Nah,
we gotta show
black.
her.
You get a black.
We got to send her a link to the Xbox Design Lab, and she can see what her options are. Especially now that they added like these cosmic metal colors on there. And
they got the ones for the nail polish.
Yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Oh, yeah, the OPI.
Yeah. And that little logo, the Design Lab, was on the refresh. So the rumor is that you're going to be able to Design Lab your consoles as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. The other, like for me, I have two controllers. That's all I have. I have the one that came with the unit, and then I bought a 20th anniversary Xbox One because it just looked cool. And I actually like it because it's got a grip on the bottom where you put your hand, where your palm goes to where your fingers rest, which the stock unit controller doesn't have. So it's pretty cool. And it's micro print Xbox 20 logos. It's pretty cool. Similar to what the PS5 has, but theirs is the PlayStation logo with the symbols on the buttons, micro printed, and it's it gives you that grip to it, but it's not, that's just plastic. The Xbox One is more like a rubber feel.
Nice.
My point is though, like I have both controllers. I don't even use the Xbox 20th anniversary one. It just sits there. I just use the stock one that it came with. So for me, it's not my hobby, but I know people just like Maceo does that spend money. Like we have a mutual. Jared, he buys a lot of controllers because I remember us talking about all the different versions, and he's bought a few. Like there's been some cool Halo looking controllers that I've wanted, and I just
that Starfield controller was sweet.
Yeah,
that Starfield one too. I literally almost bought it, but I'm like, I have one here I barely use, and the other one has never been used. Like I'm not just starting this.
Start it, yes, start it.
No, not happening.
The snowball needs to start somewhere, Bobby.
and then I saw the PS5 controller went up. The DualSense went up for Spider-Man 2, and it's a Spider-Man 2 controller. It looks amazing.
Yeah, I don't know.
Still, I had it in the cart. Nope, not doing it.
Yeah, that's a good decision. You've got good decisions in there too. You don't need those. Well, this is the bit of news that had a bunch of Nintendo fanboys and gamers in general losing their minds more than they lost their minds over Starfield. Part of this leaked email, Phil Spencer, again, Microsoft Gaming CEO, revealed his ongoing interest in potentially acquiring either Nintendo or Valve, the developer behind Steam. The email was disclosed as part of the FTC versus Microsoft lawsuit. The email mentions Microsoft's past attempts to acquire Nintendo dating back to 1999 when they were famously laughed out of the room. And Phil called it, quote, the prime asset for us in gaming, end quote. He highlighted discussions with Nintendo's leadership about closer collaboration, noting that Microsoft is well positioned for potential future negotiations due to its financial strength. But in spite of this, Spencer acknowledged that there is no immediate avenue for any kind of agreeable merger with Nintendo. He did emphasize the importance of the patient approach, saying that he does not want a hostile takeover as the viable option. He mentioned that Microsoft's board of directors is supportive to the idea of acquiring Nintendo or Valve, which I think every game company would love to. I mean, they would all say yes to it. He concluded by stating that acquiring Nintendo would be a career-defining moment for him. I don't know about you guys, but when I read this email in its plain black and white, it seemed to me as if he was just saying, yeah, it would be great if we could acquire Nintendo. It didn't seem like there were concrete plans to even have this happen in the next 10 years.
Exactly. It was a joke.
Yeah.
He's being funny and, posturing.
Yeah. If anything, those emails were more or less like, man, what it would be incredible. It would be like they would put Microsoft would have my face on statues if I somehow pulled it off. Yeah. But he's more or less like, maybe we don't get Nintendo, but at least we can partner more and more stuff. And this was right around the time when, Minecraft was put in Smash. They put the Minecraft Steve into Smash and maybe Banjo-Kazooie. So they were working together and they were thinking ahead like, hey, what can we do to get maybe we don't buy Nintendo, but maybe we get Game Pass on the Switch or something. So they, in my opinion, they do need to bolster that relationship and try to work more together. I know getting Nintendo games on the Xbox is like an impossible feat. It will probably never happen, but they for sure should still see and try to put some of their titles on the Switch. I don't see why not. The market for Switch is not the same as the market for an Xbox.
Right.
So it doesn't overlap. So they should definitely try to make money in that space. But I definitely understand what his thought process is. And even as you said at the tail end of that Nintendo, they're still thinking hardware. They're not thinking software. They're not thinking putting something on the cloud. Like that's not where their mind goes when it comes to video games. They're still thinking we need to sell this hardware, make a profit on the hardware and then make super profit on the software. And they're not evolving that business model. The business model for Nintendo has not changed in the past 50 years. It's sell hardware and sell a ton of software on top of that hardware. And when it fails, like the Wii U or like the GameCube, then they just lose hundreds of millions of dollars of profit for a generation. So,
yeah, I think this part of the so-called leak is the most overreacted to because people are turning it around and weaponizing it, for clicks. Because who in the right mind in Phil Spencer's position would not jokingly say, "Of course, I would like to have that company," or
right.
Why? If you say you don't want Nintendo, you're a moron. Like that's. Even if it was impossible, which it is, you still say like, yeah, I'd love to have that. And that's essentially what he said in quotes like shortened. And that's just, banter between employees. And sure, this is what's getting turned around and people making articles about it and talking about it. Oh my God, how dare Microsoft, they bought all this. Now they're trying to buy Nintendo. Ha ha ha. What a joke. Sure. That's easy to turn around and make a negative impact on them. Clearly it's not what happened. I'd like to be proven wrong, but it clearly doesn't say that. And the fact that this already happened back in 99, 2000, it was at a E3 when this happened. It's purely documented. They met with Nintendo, they met in a room, and Nintendo did laugh them out of the room. But you know what? At least they tried. Who else has tried to do that? Nobody, right? At least that we know of. So it's not like it hasn't happened before. So why is it a big deal now? Well, it's a big deal now because everybody needs something to click on and feed the news cycle. So whatever. I think it's a non-point really.
The way these gamers were behaving, I was like, I hope it happens. And now I really fucking like I was like, let's buy up all the stock. Like, but that guy that had interest, that woman or man that had an interest in Nintendo and is buying up stock, and they mentioned that in the email. It's like, you know what? Let's hope the craziness does happen. In the meantime, though, Microsoft did make a 10-year commitment to release Call of Duty games on Nintendo consoles. So their relationship with Nintendo is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think it's stronger than Nintendo's relationship with Sony.
Absolutely. And
for sure.
Just to circle back on the whole buying Nintendo, people were up in arms about Nintendo. The real thing that could actually happen is Microsoft buying Valve. Now, as much as Gabe Newell doesn't really fuck with Microsoft, and he wouldn't want to sell, if at any point Steam and Valve in general, it's its own company, it's not publicly traded, so they can do whatever the fuck they want. If they want to sell to Microsoft, they can. And if at any point Gabe knows if he wants to leave and he doesn't give a fuck about like his whole beef with Microsoft, how he doesn't really fuck with them like that, and he doesn't want Valve to be its own thing absent of him, he could easily say, all right, man, I'm 60 years old, 65 years old. I'm done. I don't want to deal with this shit no more. Hey, Microsoft, fucking 100 billion. You can have Steam and they'll take it. They'll fucking take it. So that is a problem, because then that pretty much takes PC gaming and gives it to Microsoft, and they have complete control over computer gaming. So that is the true worrisome part of this. Nintendo is pretty much never going to happen for the most part, but Steam is definitely a thing that could happen.
And that's the one nobody's talking about. And you're right. Gabe is the person that would do that just to hands up, I'm out, and take the money. His personal golden parachute. And the FTC can't do anything about it.
Just like Mojang. When Buddy was like, you know what? I'm cool. I don't want to have to deal with this Minecraft shit. Give me my billions of dollars and I'm just going to go chill in my mansion. Like, if Gabe wants to do that, he could easily just dust his hands off and hit the old dusty trail, just leave it off to Microsoft.
How about this? Bob Iger buys Steam and it's done. Disney owns Steam.
Well, I think Apple at this point would be more likely, right?
No, because Steam doesn't really have a interface with Mac OS. So
nothing works with Mac. That's the problem. That's why Xbox is not good for Mac users. It's just the interface. Everything's so foobarred.
Well, as part of the leak, there were games that were unintentionally announced, or at least there were plans for some upcoming remastered versions of Bethesda's classic titles, including Fallout 3 and The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. And these remasters are part of Xbox's undisclosed projects that are awaiting official announcements. This one, gamers were pretty happy about. They were excited about it. They like remasters, especially if they're done well, instead of just, upgrading the resolution, but to actually do some quality of life improvements, some true remasters. They can really pay off for them if they bring these titles back. And they should, because they bought up Bethesda. Why not make money on some of the past projects?
I'm fine with this. Fallout 3 isn't my favorite Fallout. Fallout New Vegas is, so I kind of wouldn't give a fuck about a remaster of Fallout 3. But Oblivion is an incredible game, and if they remastered that, gave it like basically Starfield's graphics, and then that soundtrack, incredible. The storyline is pretty good, especially the expansion stuff is really fun, and the ability of how you can build your character in Oblivion and just turn your character into a fucking juggernaut is so much fun.
These are cool announcements, but I don't care. They're just remasters or remakes, whatever. The Bethesda games aren't really for me. They're not my cup of tea. They're fun. They're good. They're not bad. They're just, my play style doesn't fit Bethesda games in general. So I'm not excited about them. I played Fallout 3, whatever, it's great. Played Oblivion, sure, it's great. But those games I get lost in because I play Collecticon style, and Bethesda games are not meant to be Collecticon, and that just ends terribly for me. So, just me.
To kind of round out the update on why these leaks happened or how they happened, and I know you touched on it a little bit, but in the last update, at least from when I was putting these show notes together, the judge in the FTC versus Microsoft case, Jacqueline Scott Corley, confirmed that Microsoft had inadvertently shared non-public information in court documents, leading to their removal from the public link. The exhibits will be resubmitted with only public information, and those have already been resubmitted as of today's recording. Previously, the FTC accused Microsoft of a massive Xbox leak revealing unannounced hardware and games. Leaked emails exposed Microsoft's plans for the 2024 mid-gen refresh, which we covered, and the FTC blamed Microsoft for the error. So now we're saying that, yes, it was confirmed that someone at Microsoft or a lawyer had inadvertently put all this together and leaked it. And Phil Spencer has since also said on Twitter that, I think the only thing he said about this whole leak is that this is not the way that they like to announce these projects, because they work so hard on the marketing that to have them be known through a leak, especially when, as he says, that things have changed so much since 2020 as far as these plans, that it wasn't something that they desired, but that they'll continue to focus on this year. And then as things get announced, they will announce it in their own time. How much of this do you think can change or might change since 2020 out of all these leaks, a lot of which we know have already been funded, such as the refreshes?
All of it.
I think a decent amount of it. I mean, we saw on those leaks, the cloud, the Keystone, I believe is the code name, which was the streaming stick. And we all know that got canceled, that got canned. Also, the Xbox handheld, we know that didn't get funded at all. And
yeah, the Sony one did.
That got canned. And basically, between those two projects, we found out, besides that and the Microsoft's beef with the CMA in regards to the Activision Blizzard acquisition, was that the cloud doesn't exist. Basically, Microsoft is basically putting in single-digit millions of dollars into the cloud, basically just to keep the lights on, because they don't believe that it's ready, that people want to pay a subscription service fee or any sort of fee to play their games via the cloud, and they don't know how to monetize it. And so basically they're just allowing people who have Game Pass to continue to play these games on the cloud. But due to the fact that they don't have a way to break into mobile, because Apple blocks Game Pass on their app store, and then Android, they don't block it, but they want 30% of the subscription fee. They pretty much just said cloud doesn't exist. And if cloud doesn't exist, you don't need Keystone, you don't need a streaming stick, and you don't need the controller that can use Wi-Fi to directly go to the cloud. You don't need a streaming handheld like Sony doing with the remote play handheld, because they probably also realized, hey, our cloud service isn't really that much better, and nobody wants to pay for it either. So you got all of this came to a head, and that's what Microsoft was trying to convince the CMA, like, you guys are worried about the cloud, and if we buy Activision, that we're going to have so much control over the cloud gaming space, and we're not making any money off of this shit. We're literally divesting from the cloud because it doesn't make any money, and we don't have a way to monetize it. And we literally have we have thousands of people that use the cloud, not millions. We have millions of Game Pass subscribers, but we only have thousands of people that use the cloud. So that's why they were sitting there like scratching their heads, like, why is the CMA blocking our deal because of the cloud, when we told them cloud doesn't exist? So with those revelations, we should pretty much take some of these leaks with a grain of salt. Like, I don't think that those systems, I can't imagine that they heard the news with the PS5 getting that pro version, and they're just like, yo, we pumped up that we have the strongest console ever, the strongest console in the world, and then they're literally not going to have the strongest console in it.
And there's no way that this refresh at all between now and its release that they end up doing some kind of hardware upgrade other than what we've seen so far, right? Do you guys think that there's going to be any way that the refreshes get any kind of bulk up now that we know that the Pro is coming?
If the refresh is, if that's what they funded, then that's what they have to put out, because it's so much R&D goes into this. So that decision would have had to have been made in 2021. So obviously we have the slides from 2020. If the 2021 slides, if they did some R&D and said, hey, we can add another 3 or 4 teraflops onto this and keep it at the same price point, then maybe they could do something like that. But as far as we know, if they funded those 2020 leaks, that's what we're going to get, unfortunately.
So counter argument here, because we're talking all PS5 or Sony and Microsoft. I think what needs to be discussed is the elephant in the room, that anytime between now, end of the year, or the Game Awards, which are in end of November, beginning of December, I think is when they usually host that. Maybe not then, but maybe first quarter next year. You better believe Nintendo's going to come into the room, drop their $300 to $400 giant cock on the desk, and say, "Here's our new system."
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is what is going to shush all this, and that's probably why we got this nonsense. Believe it or not, yes or no, if it's real, with these refreshes, because Nintendo is 100% going to announce a new system soon, and it's going to be on sale next year. That's important because they're six years deep into their cycle on their console, and there's already games right now that consistently don't perform. Like Mortal Kombat 1 somehow released on that platform, and it's an absolute disaster. And you've got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that have been broken since launch, and it's not because of the game. Yeah, the game may have some setbacks because of the COVID development, and they had to put it out. They were not allowed to delay that game. Totally different story. But the system itself, the hardware, cannot support the games that they're putting out. And I think that's going to be a bigger issue, right? We all know it's going to be a bigger issue when Call of Duty comes over to the Switch. So, or whatever they were going to call their next system, because they can't put it on the current Switch. It's just not going to work. So I think that's the bigger discussion that is going to occur once Nintendo makes that announcement. And that thing, whatever it is going to sell like gangbusters. Because I'll tell you right now, I'll buy one, because I want to have a better system to play some of these games on that are just not performing correctly on the current Switch. Well, the OLED was a disaster because the chip problem. So instead of getting the new system, we got a compromised version 1 with a better screen, which I don't know why people are buying those things, but sure, if you are only mobile, it's good for you because you get a nicer screen. Other than that, it's 100% the same exact hardware that's in the original Switch. It's just a fake refresh with a price tag that is useless.
Also, to add on that, Nintendo's the only console out of the big three. They're the only ones that's with NVIDIA, and they have the superior tech when it comes to DLSS. And if they put that on the new Switch, it can make games look just as good as a PS5 or Xbox Series X. So that's the real kicker. If they can get the power at least to, I would say, to PS4 Pro or Xbox, the Xbox One X, if it can get to that power, and then all they have to do is now use DLSS to get it to that resolution that they want it to, so that it actually looks just as good as the current gen. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw what Apple is doing right now with the iPhone 15 Pro Max. That shit has Resident Evil 4 looking fucking incredible.
You can play it right off the phone.
Yeah,
no one's gonna buy that shit for $70.
No one's buying it. No one's buying it for that price. But that's what they have on a phone. The Switch is gonna be bigger. It's gonna have a actual fan on it. And I know, Apple is doing some crazy shit with their GPUs, and their silicone is crazy. But NVIDIA is still the king of this graphic shit. So I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't need to be a Series X or a PS5. It just needs to look close enough and be able to run the games that are coming out on both with DLSS pumping it up to give it that extra boost.
And typically their systems have always been lesser and more affordable, right? That's just their model.
Mhm.
Yep.
You know, what if they just break the mold? We get exactly what you're talking about, Maceo, and it's a powerhouse. They could charge $500 for it, which would be the first time ever they've charged that much for a system. Everybody's still going to buy it. Who's not going to buy it? Who does not want to get access to the Zelda games, the Mario games, and all the stuff that, you know, their IPs are so popular for?
Well, they
It's
don't want
going
to
to
pull
happen.
another Wii U, man. Actually, I want them to do another Wii U because then it'll be easier to acquire them. But yeah, no, they can easily go from one. They can do that easily. I mean, people weren't buying GameCubes to play Zelda or Pokemon. People weren't buying Wii U's just to play. Not enough people were buying those systems just to play those games. So it could. I wouldn't write them off as an immediate success.
Yeah,
No,
I think they're going to switch too. I'm not envisioning GameCube or
Oh, no.
where but
It's going to be a mobile
there's
system.
no way, but there's no way a mobile system can get you Xbox and PS5 performance, but it can get you to something that looks kind of like it. And as long as it can run the games, they're going to have to put way more terabytes. They're going to have to put a terabyte on this thing. They can't just keep putting like zero storage on these things. And they're going to have to eat a little bit of that profit. They're not going to be able to make $100, $150 per system sell off rip. They might have to only be able to make $50 of profit per system and then just sell a shit ton of hardware. And, you know, hopefully down the line when it gets cheaper to be made, then they can just earn the profit then. But, you know, we'll see. I'm not counting Nintendo out at all because they ran this whole generation. Doesn't matter that the games were less graphical intensive. Doesn't matter that it was only a handheld. They made the most money between all three of the big three.
Yeah, and they will continue to do so. And I think it's going to be interesting when they do pop out, because they're secretive. They're just going to pop out, and this announcement's going to go. It's going to get leaked first, obviously, and it's just going to shake everything. It's going to be like, holy cow, really? You're going to do this? Like, what if they, to your point, Maceo, what if they make it's going to be another handheld system, but what if they made a dock that was not just that piece of plastic and it actually had components in it so that when you plug in the unit, it channels to that portion to enhance it for a more console play experience, to give you enhanced, you know, HDR, 4K resolution, you know, different things that would go specifically to a TV. But when you undock it, you get, you know, enhanced, you know, Switch 2 components, whatever that's going to be. So you get both. And that's to my point of it costing more. Like they could charge $500, $600. People will buy it. Yes, it'll price out the lower tier. But it would be something that would not only compete, but give you what you wanted both on the go and at home. It would be another versatile unit. And the reason why, like you say, it's going to have to be a mobile unit again is because, like, from my world where I come working for Pikachu, like, you cannot host those tournaments with thousands of people with consoles. They have to be mobile units. So I don't think we're going to go backwards to a console home unit at home, a console unit for home and a separate device for mobile on the go like that. I just don't think they're going to do that. I think it's going to be another all-in-one device that offers two different avenues of play. And I think that's a thing. They can make the dock enhanced with more components. And when you dock it, it utilizes that stuff combined with the unit. And then, you know, you undock it and you get the mobile capacity, whatever's in that unit.
Yeah,
that's what I heard
think,
were the rumors, that it was going to be a hybrid console, just like the Switch. And the only other thing I had heard is they're still back and forth on whether they want this to be backwards compatible or not. They're apparently feeling a lot of they're feeling a lot of pressure from third parties who are saying that they want to resell the same games to the new console. So that's why they're still supposedly on the fence on that one.
I could see if they were like, oh, it's not going to have backwards compatibility with the cartridges just to save that money on the physical hardware, but digital software, they cannot, they can't just say, oh, all that shit that you bought on the Switch is only on the Switch. Like that shit is, they got away with it with the Switch because of the Wii U and the Switch, and they could do it on that, but they can't pop this thing out, call it Switch 2 and say, oh, it has zero backwards compatibility. You can't put your cartridges in, and those digital games you bought, do not transfer over. Like they got away with that shit too many times in a row. They did it from the Wii to the Wii U and the Wii U to the Switch.
Well,
Like I'm still playing 360 games on my fucking Xbox Series X.
Well, Microsoft cares the most
can't-
about preservation out of all these guys. That's clear. That much has
Yeah.
been clear.
you sound like
I
a
could
stock
still-
owner.
I could still
facts are
play.
there, Bobby.
I can pop on
Yes.
Left 4 Dead 2 right
Damn
now and play on Xbox Live with people.
Can't
like,
do that
you
on
can't-
Switch. Can't do that on
Yeah,
PS4.
you can't
PS5.
tell me that I want to be. You can't tell me that the Switch 2 comes out and they're like, oh, that copy of Hades, you got to buy that again. Like what?
The biggest thing with the previous is that they were dealing with two different consoles. Sorry, that's not the right word. Devices. You had your console, and then you had your mobile device. And then what they did was they merged it with the coming out of the Switch. So that's why all that leftover stuff needed to be cut off. And what Mesa you're saying, like going forward, there's no way that they cut it off again because their hybrid model is now mobile. And it's going to be the same store. So everything's going to be backwards compatible, especially digital. Like you'll have access to that. They can't cut that again. I agree.
A little Nintendo talk there, a little bit of Xbox. I think this final thing that I think we should cover before we wrap things up, because it just broke, was that PlayStation CEO Jim Ryan has announced that he's retiring amid record-breaking PS5 sales. And it refreshed. We got a little more information, and he basically pointed to not being able to run things, live in Europe and then run things over in North America. He just said it was not sustainable for his personal life, it seemed like. So after 30 years, he's stepping away from Sony. I know we talked about it a little bit off air, but do you guys think that this is a negative or a positive move for Sony? And do you think that there's something else to be blamed in spite of these great PS5 sales, supposedly? Do you think that there's something else afoot as far as him leaving?
Cut bait, move on. Like they've made a lot of missteps. I don't know if he's the talking mouthpiece or not, but given that he's the CEO, I'm pretty sure he has substantial weigh in on some of the decisions they make. And I can point to one of them. It's the whole back and forth bullshit with next gen games not releasing on PS4, like specifically Horizon Forbidden West. That was a joke of an announcement. Within 2 days, he comes out and says, "Oh, wait. We heard you loud and clear. Yeah. We're going to go ahead and offer a PS4 version for $10 less or whatever." Well, you can't keep doing that. Like just because the public sways your opinion in your business model, that's not how that's supposed to work. You stand clear on what you're going to do and do it or don't do it. Don't keep bending to Twitter pressure. I'm sorry. That's just not how you run a business. And then the other thing I noted was the Project Q thing. That thing's an absolute joke and people are buying it. Like why? And they're not going to sell a lot of them. And then the VR2 or PSV VR2 thing, that's a joke. Like they go so hard on some of this stuff. And then obviously all the money is spent. That's probably his decision. He stamps them. So they're losing money on all these avenues. And meanwhile, they're trying to fight with this Xbox thing and, Nintendo in the corner quietly making all the money. So it's like, if that's the reason, then sure, he deserves to get away. It's 30 years and it's not working. Bring somebody else in, somebody younger or whatever, and change it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think he lucked out because the PS5 won the console war out of the Xbox Series X and PS5. PS5 won, but he does have tons of blunders on his jacket. You got, especially in this gen alone, you got the Project Q, PSVR 2, like that thing came out, and currently we don't know a single Sony first party studio that's working on any future games for it. They only had the fucking Horizon game that came out with it, and then other than that, there's no Last of Us, there's no Uncharted, there's nothing. So that's already a blunder. You got the Project Q, that's a blunder. They did all that reorganization of the PlayStation Network, PlayStation Plus thing, and nothing happened. They didn't move any more subscriptions than they already had. What else?
The price
the price hikes that they've put. I mean, obviously they've kept the PlayStation the same in North America, but everywhere else it went up.
PS Plus price hikes, but
Yep.
no.
Yep.
product. It's
PS
just the same shit.
same shit, but they pumped the price up, and they just reorganized it earlier this year, and they already fucking pumped up the price. Insanity. What else? Damn, there's a couple other things that happened.
The hack. There was a hack this week again.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that alleged hack. We still don't know if it's Sony or if it's PlayStation, but he's got a couple more that I can't remember. That has to do with PlayStation. Oh, the fact that they only had one, they blew their load and pumped up 2022 and 2021, and
Oh yeah, nothing.
2023 they had Spider-Man, and that's it. Like no other
Right.
games. And so you got that going on.
The deal with Square Enix to do Final Fantasy 16 exclusive, big mistake.
Yep. That ain't push the needle anywhere. That didn't move the needle. So he's got a couple blunders on his jacket, but all of that is being masked by how well the PlayStation 5 is doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know if he got pushed out. That's his reasoning. Oh, like you did it for 3 years somehow. You lived in America, lived in Europe, and he worked in America, and he did that for years. So I don't know how all of a sudden now that's a problem in the day and age of working from home. Now all of a sudden he just can't stomach. He can't stomach working in America, but living in Europe. So I don't know.
His quotes during the FTC trial were pretty whiny too. He's crying like a little baby.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Some of the things that he was saying is like what a 12-year-old would say in the schoolyard. Like it was pretty bad.
I can't imagine his Japanese under the CTOs, the CFOs hearing from Activision, oh, we went to Jim Ryan and said, let's work something out. Let's make a deal. We want this merger to go through with Microsoft, and him saying, nah, I'm just trying to block it.
Yep. And we don't know. Maybe that's
and
the
then
reason.
It didn't happen. So he made the company look foolish.
Maybe Sony told him, if this merger goes through, you're out. We don't know that.
Possibly.
So that maybe that's why he was
curious
so hard.
Curious timing, because CMA just approved the merger.
Yep. And it's funny because as soon as the FTC approved it, literally the next day, the CMA is like, all right, fine, we'll listen to you. Why? Because that means the deal would have gone through and the CMA would have made no dollars. All of Europe, I'm sorry, not all of Europe, all of UK would have been cut off from any sales on games. So they knew that was a massive, and to be fair, Europe does a lot of business. Like they move a lot of physical units over there, not digital, because their internet over there is ass. I can tell you that for sure because I've been over there a couple times. So they actually move physical units better than the US. And being cut out of the whole digital market, and if this is all true with phasing out discs, how do you think of course they're going to show up at the door and say, okay, well, listen, right? So makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and that's exactly a similar thing to what I said when they first started all this with the UK, of even if they had denied that the acquisition, that they would then have to go through the UK system, but that would have taken years, and that would have been years of no Call of Duty. So that actually would have hurt consumers even more. So thankfully things are going better and in Microsoft's direction. Now, Bobby, you famously said that this wouldn't go through. What do you have to say with this latest news?
Well, it hasn't gone through yet, so when it does, we'll have that conversation.
So it's still not going through, you're saying?
It has not happened yet, so when it happens, then we can talk about it.
All right. And we will.
In other news, did we all see the potential leak of somebody buying Call of Duty, and it says, oh, you're going to get this free with whatever?
No, I saw with Game Pass, yes. That they're already starting to put in Activision Blizzard games into...
Well, that's the rumor, because it didn't happen in the US. It happened in the Latin American country. So they're tying that to the rumor of like, oh, look, it's coming to Game Pass. So we'll see if that's true. I think that's interesting. If it's actually true and not made up or fabricated.
Yeah, very exciting times for sure. So guys, thank you so much for being on for this. What is the first of what the podcast is now, the news inspiring the episode. And this was, of course, as you all heard, all Microsoft Xbox leaks and some gaming news towards the end of it. So thanks for joining us, and please, Maceo, let them know where they can find you if they want to continue the conversation.
You can find me on the Discord. If you join the Reasons on Bro Discord, you tag me on something at Mac the Murderer, and I will see it and I will respond.
Awesome. And how about you, Bobby?
You can find me on the Discord as well. I think that's a really good place to meet up and chat and talk. I'm always here to answer questions, whether it be in the topics that we share or, as many of you know, Mr. Pikachu, I can answer those questions as well. I am on the X, but if you want it, you'll find it. I'm not going to advertise it.
And for the podcast this week, instead of review bombing Starfield, why don't you review bomb positively the show? Leave us a review on wherever you're listening to us. If they have a rating system, we could always use the positive ratings, especially after the gun stands had really come forth this year, and we shook them up a little bit, and they got mad. They did a little review bombing themselves. So if you want to help out the average, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts especially. But otherwise, I've been Daniel, joined by Maceo and Bobby, and Brocat Core. All will be well.
Maceo, what's game of the year if it were hosted Friday?
Probably Baldur's Gate 3. I haven't played it, but
really,
from what I could tell, it checks all the boxes.
People want to know about it.
It's just like Final Fantasy 16, though. It's only on 2 platforms currently. A possible third by the end of the year, rumored.
Yeah, that's on Microsoft, unfortunately, because they had their whole parody thing, and you could play the game split screen on the console, but the Series S wasn't strong enough to do split screen, and Microsoft has that parity clause where whatever you have on one Xbox, if you have it working on the Xbox Series X, you have to have it working on Series S. Yep. So it would have been out, but game looks incredible. Tons of voice acting. It came out 0 bugs. So I would say that has to be it. Unless, Spider-Man. You said today and Spider-Man's not out, but I would imagine Spider-Man 2 is going to get a bunch of nods as well.
You're right. I probably shouldn't have said Friday. But yeah, that should be considered as well. So like Game Awards time, so December. Yeah, we have to be able to plan for the games that have yet to come out, so it's fair.
Alan Wake 2 looked really good as well.
Mine, which did get pushed, that comes out right before Halloween now. Mine is, I have to go with the obvious choice. Tears of the Kingdom is going to be a landslide.
I knew it was going to be a Nintendo item.
Which, again, only on one freaking console, but the fact that it's the highest selling game all year for anything and broke every single record possible, like that's the one. I don't like it. I hate that it's fucking Minecraft Zelda. I can't stand it. I have to play that game in chunks. It frustrates me so much. But I'll give credit where credit is due. That is an amazing fucking game. And the fact that it runs on the Switch so well, that is an accomplishment on its own. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what they did. They did some Houdini shit, but it works.
Man, my thing with Zelda, if you're going Zelda up against Baldur's Gate 3, it's like Baldur's Gate 3 is like moving the needle forward. It's pushing the genre of RPGs forward.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't think that new Zelda really did anything different versus besides, as you said, all the Minecraft shit. But when it comes to just the base game, like it's just an upgraded version of Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is the thing that blew us away. And to me, it didn't really seem like Tears of the Kingdom has done the same.
Well, it is different. Like, have you played it at all?
No, I haven't.
Because it does have 3 layers. It's not just, you're right. It is a skin over of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild. That's 100% true. But the fact that it has the whole sky area, so it's a whole nother game on top. And then you got a bottom level, which is the depths. Like it's a whole nother game underneath, as well as the air one. The air one's less because it's just islands in different places. But the depths for sure is literally a whole nother game below, and it interacts with the surface. That's the really neat feature of that game that keeps you engaged longer beyond the story. But another talk for another day. That's pretty cool. My other choice, if it's not Tears of the Kingdom, just because it's locked on Nintendo, would be Jedi Survivor. That game is insane. Absolutely insane.
If it would have came out in a more polished state, I would probably agree. It took them a while to fix some shore
Yeah.
the game up a little bit.
They fixed it. It works.
Yeah, it's good now. It's good now, but they should have delayed it to now, and then it would have got a lot better reception.
Yep. And I agree. Spider-Man 2 is going to be a juggernaut. We'll see how that launches. The bad part is it's only on Sony, but same thing with, Tears of the Kingdom, only on Nintendo.
Yeah, we'll find out at the Jeff Keighley PlayStation Awards. It's going to be Spider-Man 2. Starfield won't even get the nom. I'm telling you.
Will we get another guy that runs on stage and says Bill Clinton wants a certain game?
Oh, yeah. He's going to stage this one.
He's 2 for 2.
Yep.
He's 2 for 2 now.
It's going to happen.